How do you know you existed before that first memory? Some people say photos, and then I say, okay, we didn't have photos. Stories, or the fact that you see other babies grow up and then become aware of their existence. So you're thinking, I must have been a baby first, so I must have existed. But my question to you is, if you don't know you exist before your first memory, how do you know you don't exist after your last?
Welcome to season 1 of Beyond the Human. Remember who you are. I'm your host, Hazel Ray, singer, songwriter, experiencer, and messenger for those walking the edge of remembrance just like me. This is not a podcast to convince you of anything. Really, just take what resonates, leave what doesn't. This is a transmission, a call to the ones waking up, the ones remembering, the starseeds, the sensitives, the truth seekers, bridging science and spirit. If you're listening to this, you are ready. So let's remember together.
Welcome to the very first episode of Beyond the Human. I am Hazel Ray, and we are going to have some chats about all things weird and wonderful. I'm going to talk about spiritual. I'm going to talk about aliens. I'm going to then bridge it all, bring it all together with some science. We're going to talk about some neuroscience. Yeah, I've got so many things that I really want to share with you, and I suppose unlock some potential in you as to maybe what you're here for, why you feel the way that you feel, or this podcast is really for those soul searchers, those truth seekers, like I am, and I have been, I think, for my whole entire life. So the mantra is consider all, believe nothing. So if you believe everything that I say today, you've missed the point. And if you disbelieve everything that I say today, you've missed the point, because belief has to have the mind to interplay with that. And really, I just want you to come to my podcast with a childlike mind, because when you're a child, you are absolutely 100% just in the present moment. And really, that means that you've got no beliefs as to whether something is right or wrong, because you don't have any memories or analytical mind that's developed to draw on to then discount what is being said. So really, again, come to these podcasts with a real childlike mind of kind of like, what if? Like, what if that was true, or is that possible? So there's an ancient elephant parable that I sort of discuss in my experiences. And one of the things I should explain is that some of you might be here because you've seen my shows. So I have an Asleep to Awake show, followed by an Awake to Aware show, and then an Aware to Ascension show. And they have all been performed many times down where I live. I was realizing was people were wanting to hear more, or I suppose connect with my teachings more. And from a one show, there's only so much that I can share. And those experiences themselves have been going for 2.5 hours each. So we have a lot of content to cover in here and more. So the ancient elephant parable states that originally I think there were 8 blind people, but usually I explain it with 4. So imagine there are 4 blind people and they're all asked to explain what an elephant is. And the first person is asked to hold on to the trunk of the elephant. The second person is asked to hold on to the leg of the elephant. The third person is asked to put their hands on the side of the elephant. And the last blind person is asked to hold the tail of the elephant. And the first person is asked, what is an elephant? And I think I said the trunk. See, here we go. I was supposed to say the tusks of the elephant. So the first person's holding the tusks of the elephant, and the person asks, what is an elephant? And the blind person explains an elephant is like sharp spears. The second person who's holding the legs of the elephant are like, an elephant's like a rough tree trunk. And the third person says the elephant's like a warm curved wall. And the last person says the elephant's a rough rope. Now we know that each of those blind people are explaining what they are able to experience. And so for them, an elephant is a spear or a trunk or a warm wall or a rope. but we know that they're not able to comprehend the full picture. So for me, that's how I see all of the religions. They're all holding a part of the elephant, but are unable to perceive the whole picture. I would even put science in the same bracket, because you and I, no one's actually ever seen an atom. We theorize them from experiments and looking at hypotheses and proving them or falsifying, and we've come up with this atom which can help explain how we interact with our material world. But again, we're believing that that is present, and then everything else is created from that. So you can just sit with that for a moment. I really want to get to the bottom of who are you? And I suppose in this whole first series, we'll be sort of diving into that, and not only looking at the spiritual side of that, but the science side of what makes you up, and why are you here, and all those types of questions. So with the who you are, I love to ask this question at my shows, and it is, do you remember when you were born? I'm probably going to put down that you don't. Can you imagine remembering like coming out the birth canal? It was described to me that being born is like being naked on the corner of a street with someone's headlights beaming on you and it's pouring rain. So that sounds pretty traumatic to me. I don't know about you. Anyway, so we don't remember it, which I'm really grateful for. Okay, so then I asked, do you remember when you were 1? Do you remember when you were 2? Do you remember when you were 3? I usually get a few memories by now, just like 1 or 2 memories. 4, 5, a lot of people remember when they were 5, they have a couple of memories. So, okay, we have some memories. Most of us, by the time we're 7, we have a memory that we can access. How do you know you existed before that first memory? Some people say photos, and then I say, okay, we didn't have photos. Stories, or the fact that you see other babies grow up and then become aware of their existence. So you're thinking, I must have been a baby first, so I must have existed. But my question to you is, if you don't know you exist before your first memory, how do you know you don't exist after your last? You know, Newton's 3rd law of conservation says energy can't be created nor destroyed, only transferred from one form into another. That's saying that electrical energy, so my lamp here, is being transferred into heat and light. I can feel the warmth coming from this. So it's divided. And it's the same with us. We have all this chemical energy inside of us, but we also have heat energy that I'm expelling and sound energy that I'm expelling. You know, and when we pass, we have energy that has to be transformed. Is it not just possible that there's part of our energy that leaves our body, that is part of the collective consciousness, that is part of the world that we exist in, that is part of the universe that we exist in? Now, I'm sort of giving you a backstory in a short way of sort of where I've come from and where I'm going and my life and the questions that I've posed. And I suppose I've been a deep thinker ever since I was really young. And just so you are aware too, I studied neuroscience at university and became a maths and science teacher at schools. And that is why I've been on this journey of trying to understand a lot of my childhood and things I've seen and experienced. And I'm going to get into all those weird and wonderful stories. It won't all be in this particular episode. This is just our welcome transmission of me just trying to explain to you of sort of the things of where we're going to go, and really to start posing some questions to you and planting some seeds. So if we go back to that concept of, you know, where are we after we pass? I grew up in a family where I was christened, but we weren't really religious at all. And I would have to say we were kind of more of an atheist family, which means that when you start to question death, it can be quite scary. I used to get this feeling of like nothingness and just being petrified of it, that what is it after we are gone? We're just nothing. And nothingness to me feels like just this void, and it used to scare me. But you know, in the movies and in stories, I would hear that heaven is like this misty place with like insert, you know, smoke machine, and everyone is there that I know and that I've ever met in my life and that I love, and they're like this translucent them, and I can see them and I can experience them just like I've experienced them on earth. And I'm like, okay, that's a little strange, because as I got older and I was quite a diligent student at school and I loved science, I was kind of questioning, okay, if I'm this soul that's just this energy, how can I remember that my pa is my pa if I have no place to remember it from? And how do I see them if I have no physical eyes? I just really struggled with this concept. My pa, he died when I was 10 of motor neuron disease, and he was really like a father figure in my life too at that time, and I really struggled with his death. And it wasn't until I was 16 that I wrote my very first ever song called Heaven, which I am going to insert here somewhere. And it will really just, I suppose, signify to you just at 16 where my mind was going and the questions that I was posing, as many teenagers do go through this sort of phase of who am I and how do I want to express myself, and music was my expression. Just want to FYI, I don't have a soundproof room here, so let's just enjoy the cars that drive past. I am filming this at night because I wanted to have the least amount of background noise. So yeah, I'm going to play Heaven for you now, and yeah, just enjoy that and I'll come back.
Watching the clouds go by, watching time go by, and I don't know why. People getting older, gonna miss them when they get colder. These feelings inside of me about heaven, what to believe. Where do we go? What will we know after the last second is past? What will we say? Who will we meet? Who will it be this night where we sleep? What's real? About heaven. There are spirits in the sky. How do we see each other without our eyes? How do we remember without a place to remember from?
So I started singing when I was 16, and I wrote this song, Heaven, and I wrote in journals. That's another part of my story, and I'll be sharing lots about this, and it's so important, and there's so much neuroscience that backs how important just doing something like this can be. But this is my first journal. It says private. I'm not going to read anything out of this, but I started writing in this when I was 9. This one here, I wanted to share something that I wrote in here when I was in year 10, and this is when I started singing. And it says, my dream. And it says, I want to be someone, not just another face in the crowd, but someone on stage. I mean, I'm learning how to sing and play the piano, but I'm not that great. And then it says, people would look at this and laugh. And then it says, Hazel, you can do it. Believe in yourself. So I had this knowing that I wanted to be on stage and that I wanted to be sharing information or music and not another face in the crowd. And I didn't really understand where all this fame journey was going from, where all this driver was coming from, and probably not in this episode, but in a later episode I'll explain and unpack why the fame was such a driver for me, because it definitely wasn't fame in the end. But I obviously had a dream to be a singer. And then that song Heaven in this journal, says I played Heaven at the Warrigal Arts Centre. And in here it says, it was so beautiful, so many people, and I played to them with no stuff-ups. I just sang to my pa. He was there with me the whole time I was playing. When I got off stage, I just bawled my eyes out because I was so happy. I have never felt that way before. I want to perform for the rest of my life. Now, when I share this at my show, I say, and there's some of you sitting there in the crowd going, well, clap, clap, clap. I don't want to clap and hurt your ears with this microphone. Good on you for having a dream and then following it. And I'm like, that's actually not what happened. I bet there's so many of you out there that had a dream when you were younger, that lost sight of it and did something else. And why did you do that? If you did, feel free to write in the comments. I would love to start hearing from some of you. So write in the comments, what was your dream and what did you give up on? And another one I'd love to ask you is, why did you give up on it? So for me, being on stage or being famous or being a great singer was kind of looked upon as like the little girl's like pipe dream. And when I was at high school, even though I was a good singer and I was writing songs, everyone was like, you need to go to university and you need to get a real job. So that's what I did. I did send an album to Sony when I was 18, and I wrote the music with my boyfriend in high school. His name was Leon Duncan. Shout out to Leon. And we got a reply, and they said to me that I had a beautiful voice, but my songwriting needed maturing. Now, back then, YouTube wasn't really a thing yet. It wasn't until the next year that Justin Bieber sort of blew up off of YouTube. So I wasn't even considering. I was at university when that happened. We didn't have Spotify or a platform to launch off. So I was like, we'll give up on that anyway. And I got into behavioral neuroscience and I studied that, and I did 3 years of that. Didn't get to the honours project I wanted to, so I was like, I'll just do my dip ed. And so I became a maths and science secondary school teacher with VCE methods, so the higher levels of psychology and biology. And I went and did those things. And I'm like, why did I give up on my dreams? I've really sat back and unpacked all of that, because it wasn't really necessarily that my parents were like, no. But at school, there is a programming around where we should go, what is succession, like when do you succeed? Going to university is so prestigious and it looks really good. And I was a perfectionist, I was a gymnast, a national gymnast, and I'd been doing gymnastics from 4 till 17. Everything had to be perfect. I was an A student. I was always doing really well at school. pushing to always be the best. Now I look back, and one of the things that I think is really interesting is the television. And I usually at my shows say, what is this? And I have a picture of it. People say television, I'm like, say it slowly. And the way in Australia we say it is like television with like an A in it instead of an E. Say it slowly is tell-a-vision. And what program are we going to watch tonight? Channel 7, Channel 9. And all of these shows are designed to share information. And interestingly, and I'll go into this further in other podcasts, but I'll touch on it now. Between the ages of 0 and 7, you're in a brainwave called theta, and it's a really slow sine wave. And when you're in slow brainwave activity, you're you're really highly suggestible to information. And that's why we call little children sponges. They can learn languages really quickly and really easily. They also don't have their analytical mind developed. And that usually happens at around the age of 9. And so they're not really questioning what they're hearing. They're taking it in as if everything is truth. So you put them in front of a television, and for example, they see how a husband treats a wife on a television show, or a friend treats a friend, or how someone grieves when someone passes. And that becomes information of how you act and behave in the world, what you should be doing, go to university or go to school. And these are all the normal things that humans do. So we have been programmed, and there is so much programming from our own parents, and they've been programmed from their parents. And it really is going to take our collective, those who are awakening to this information, to change the subconscious of the collective mind. I'm one mind, you're one mind, but we all make one giant collective. And we can't expect to end world wars and, change the education system with 2 minds. We need the collective mind to change. So it's going to take a lot of us to understand what is actually going on and continue to program the younger generations with love and for us to continue to change the future. So not only has the television programmed us, but there's this life program I feel we were running, and it was the 40-40-40. I heard this a couple of years ago and I loved it. It's the program we're running is to work for 40 years of your life for 40 hours a week to retire on 40% of your annual wage. That's the 40-40-40. What if you could do something different? What if you could work from home? What if you could work all over the world, working online? The world is changing. So many people are actually able to pull incomes from not working 40 hours a week for 40 years of their life. We are doing things differently, but that was definitely programmed. I remember there will be people out here, and again, you can share it in the comments. I, for one, believed that I should be married before I was 30 and that I should have children before I was 30. So much so that my very first son, I had him at 29 and 11 months. And I remember going, yes. I literally wrote this on the birth certificate, and then I'm like high-fiving myself that I did it. I got there before 30. I mean, what is that even about? What is that even about? Now, what actually transpires in my story from all of that strange programming is actually wild. But again, I'm not going to get into that just in this episode. There are so many of us that feel stuck in our lives, and there are probably some people watching this right now and going, I really want to make change and I just don't know how, or I feel really called to do something and I just don't know how to make the first steps. So something really interesting that I realized before my awakening, and my awakening story will come out in many of these episodes, but I was a really highly anxious person. So my awakening, I call, happened at 32 and a half, and I'm 37 now. So nearly 5 years ago that my awakening happened. So I pretty much was riddled with anxiety every single day, and anxiety is living in the future. As a secondary school teacher, I'm constantly planning. Every day I was living in the next period, the next time I'm going to have these students. What are we learning? What are we doing? And planning for every single day ahead of the day I was in. And if I wasn't there, I was severely depressed about the past and the pain of my broken family or the trauma I experienced when I was younger. Again, not for today, but later. And I never even knew the now moment existed. Do you know the now moment exists? Like this moment right now that we are in can never be experienced again. But it's in the now moment that this is where we can make changes. And I'll talk about the neuroscience about that in other episodes. Joe Dispenza talks about this, and I find he puts it so beautifully. We have 60, 70,000 thoughts a day. 60 to 70,000 thoughts. 90% the same as the day before. So yeah, forgive yourself if you're having trouble making changes on a whim, because your body and your mind is programmed into the past. So yeah, you're going to have trouble changing things. So you feel stuck, but you can change things, and your life can be better, and you can do that thing that you wish that you have done in your life. I don't know how old you are, but it's never too young to do the thing that you love. There is a quote that says, if you do the thing that lights you up the most in this world and you get lost in the doing, you'll light up the world without even trying. And my mission is the world doesn't need saving, people do. And if we give the people the tools to save themselves, we save the world. This is one of my tools that I'm going to put out to the world. And if I can help one person, then it was worth my while. I already know I've been helping people with my shows, and I have music that you can access. So I have songs out on Spotify. Many of them are about the awakening journey and mental health. I have one about an eating disorder, about a demon that I faced, about finding the light, about that we're not lonely, we're all connected to consciousness. So go to Hazel Ray on Spotify. The next episode that I'm going to be doing with you is actually going to be I share a profound experience of leaving my physical body. And basically, I really want to preface this whole season around understanding the story, and then put the science with the story so that you can understand why I'm here, why I'm so well versed in all of these things, and what drove me to understand it, because I can guarantee there are people out there that have experienced similar things to me. I'm yet to find them. So if you go on to the next episode and you've had an experience like that, I want to hear from you, because some of them are wild. Yeah. So thank you for being here for the very first episode of Beyond the Human, and I'll see you on the next one.